Left 4 Dead 2 has 14 campaigns, and they are not created equal. Some are casual strolls through a zombie apocalypse, others will make you rage quit on normal difficulty. Today I'm ranking every single campaign from easiest to hardest and breaking down exactly why each one earned its spot, starting with the one that barely counts as a campaign at all. Crash Course. Crash Course is the shortest campaign in the entire Left 4 Dead franchise, and that's not an accident. Valve designed it explicitly as a bridge between No Mercy and Death Toll, not a full experience, a sprint. You're in, you're out, you're done. It was also the very first DLC ever released for Left 4 Dead, dropping in September 2009. Here's the fun part. It was completely free on PC, but if you were on Xbox 360, you had to pay 560 Microsoft points for what is essentially a glorified hallway connecting two real campaigns, and that brevity is exactly why Crash Course sits at the bottom of this ranking. There's simply not enough campaign here to challenge you. 2 chapters, minimal build-up, and a finale that ends before most campaigns even hit their stride. It's the tutorial you didn't ask for, but if you think the shortest campaign means the rest are just as forgiving, Dead Center is about to prove you wrong. Dead Center. Dead Center is the handshake. It's the first campaign you play when you boot up Left 4 Dead 2, and it's set in a shopping mall, which is literally the most cliche zombie apocalypse location in existence. The game knows it. You know it. Everybody knows it. But here's the thing about Dead Center that nobody appreciates. It's a tutorial that never once feels like a tutorial. There's no pop-up telling you how to shove a zombie, no forced slow walk while a character explains mechanics. The game just drops you into a burning hotel and says figure it out. And most players do because the level design is doing all the teaching invisibly. Now Dead Center sits near the bottom of the difficulty rankings, and that's fair. There are no unique mechanics here, no scripted curveballs, no gimmick finales that punish you for breathing wrong. It's baseline Left 4 Dead 2. But here's the kicker. Dead Center is also the campaign most players have logged the most hours on, which means your brain has memorized every spawn point, every item location, every shortcut. Try it on Expert with a fresh set of eyes, and suddenly that easy mall becomes a death trap. Familiarity is doing all the heavy lifting, and most people don't even realize it. Still, compared to what's coming next, Dead Center is a warm-up, because Dark Carnival takes everything this campaign does and cranks the insanity to 11. Dark Carnival. A carnival is already kind of unsettling when it's running normally. Now fill it with zombies, and you've got one of the most memorable campaigns in Left 4 Dead 2 history. Dark Carnival was revealed at PAX 2009 before the game even launched, and it was one of the first moments where people realized this wasn't just Left 4 Dead 1 with a fresh coat of paint. The setting alone told you everything. Valve was swinging for the fences, and the campaign delivers exactly what you'd expect. Tight corridors through carnival games, wide open midways where hordes can swarm you from every direction, and a tonal contrast that gives this campaign a personality most others simply don't have. Bright lights, ride music, cotton candy stands, all while zombies are sprinting at your face. It's absurd, it's hilarious. It's slightly terrifying. That combination is exactly why people love it. Difficulty-wise, Dark Carnival sits in that comfortable lower mid-range. No scripted tank ambushes designed to ruin your day, no special hazard mechanics forcing you to rethink your entire strategy. It's a solid, well-paced campaign that lets the setting do the heavy lifting. But the real star here is the finale. Without spoiling every detail, it's become one of the most recognizable finales in the entire series. The kind of moment that makes you laugh and panic at the same time, which honestly describes this whole campaign perfectly. But if you thought a zombie carnival was weird, wait until the swamp starts closing in around you. The passing. Alright, so this is where things get interesting from a lore perspective. The passing dropped on April 22nd, 2010, and it was the first time both survivor groups existed in the same campaign. The Left 4 Dead 2 crew meets the original Left 4 Dead survivors face to face. That's a massive deal. Now, before anyone says it in the comments, no, you cannot play as the original survivors. They show up as cameos. That's it. This is one of the most common misconceptions about this DLC, and it's been floating around for over a decade. They're there, they talk to you, but you're not switching characters. What you do get, though, is some serious new firepower. The M60 machine gun and the golf club both debut here, along with the Fallen Survivor, a new uncommon infected type that actually runs away from you and drops supplies when killed. The M60 alone turns most encounters into a joke. You're holding a weapon that absolutely shreds hordes before they even get close, which is a big reason this campaign sits in the lower difficulty range. Here's what actually gives the passing real weight, though. It was the first DLC to include additional community dialogue recorded by the original voice actors. That's not just a cameo for show. That's genuine lore being added to the universe. Free on PC, 560 Microsoft points on Xbox 360, same deal as Crash Course. But if a crossover cameo sounds wholesome, the next campaign trades suburban streets for something way more unhinged. Swamp Fever. Most campaigns in Left 4 Dead 2 throw something at you. A gimmick, a set piece, a finale that changes the rules. Swamp Fever doesn't do any of that. It just drops you into a swamp and lets the environment do the work. And honestly, that's worse. Here's the thing about Swamp Fever. Fever. There are no wide open streets to kite hordes through, no rooftops to funnel enemies into choke points. You're walking single file through narrow trails surrounded by dense reeds that block every sight line you have. A smoker could be 10 feet away and you wouldn't see the tongue until it's already around your neck. A hunter could be crouching in the brush right next to the path and you'd walk straight past it. The difficulty here isn't mechanical, it's psychological. You can't see what's coming. You can't regroup when things go sideways because there's nowhere to regroup to. Every engagement feels claustrophobic even when the actual infected count isn't that high. It's the campaign that makes you paranoid, not because the game is spawning more enemies, but because you genuinely cannot tell if something is lurking 3 feet to your left. On paper, Swamp Fever sits in the middle of the difficulty range. Nothing in its design pushes it into the brutal tier. No scripted tank gauntlets, no unique mechanics forcing split-second decisions. But atmosphere counts for something, and no other campaign in the entire franchise makes you feel this isolated. You're not fighting through a city or a carnival or a hospital. You're slogging through mud in the middle of nowhere, and nobody is coming to help. It's the kind of campaign that doesn't kill you with numbers, it kills you with dread. But if you think feeling isolated is bad, wait until Hard Rain decides to take away your visibility entirely. Hard Rain. After the neon lights and rock concert chaos of Dark Carnival, Hard Rain feels like someone flipped a switch and drained all the color out of the world. This campaign is gray, it's slow, it's suffocating, and that's exactly the point. The premise is simple enough: the survivors need to grab gas for their boat and get back. But the storm setting turns what should be a straightforward supply run into one of the most disorienting experiences in the entire game. Flooded streets swallow up familiar landmarks. Visibility drops to almost nothing. You're not fighting hordes in open arenas anymore. You're wading through rising water, struggling to figure out which direction you even came from. Here's the thing: Hard Rain doesn't need scripted difficulty spikes to feel punishing. The environment does all the heavy lifting. Every flooded street looks the same. Every building blurs together in the downpour. You lose your sense of direction constantly, and that panic of not knowing where you are while hearing a tank somewhere in the rain is something no other campaign replicates. It sits mid-tier in difficulty rankings, and on paper, the numbers probably don't look that threatening. But ask anyone who's played it on Expert, and they'll tell you it feels way harder than it should. The setting gets inside your head, it grinds you down instead of overwhelming you. And grinding down is one thing, but the next campaign takes that pressure and throws you straight into a full-blown urban war zone, the Parish. The Parish is the campaign that separates players who've played Left 4 Dead 2 from players who've actually finished it. And that distinction exists for one reason: the bridge. Look, the rest of the Parish is solid. You're pushing through the streets of New Orleans, fighting through neighborhoods, cemeteries, and urban chaos. It's a good campaign, nobody's arguing that. But let's be honest, nobody remembers the streets. Nobody talks about the cemetery. When someone says the Parish, your brain immediately goes to one thing: that bridge finale. It's one of the most iconic moments in the entire franchise. You and your team have to sprint across a massive bridge while the military is literally bombing it around you. Infected are flooding in from every direction. The bridge is crumbling, explosions are going off, and you just have to run. No holding a position, no waiting for rescue. Just pure, desperate forward momentum while everything behind you ceases to exist. Here's the thing: most finales in Left 4 Dead ask you to survive. Hold a room, flip some switches, wait for extraction. The Parish throws all of that out. It asks you to move, and it punishes hesitation with death. Players who slow down get overwhelmed, players who split up get picked off. It's a sprint that demands coordination under absolute chaos, and that's exactly why it works. The bridge is where teams fall apart or come together, and it's the last thing you do before the credits roll on the base game. It's the final exam. But if you think that's where the difficulty ceiling lives, we haven't even touched the original Left 4 Dead campaigns yet. Coldstream. Coldstream holds a weird but important place in Left 4 Dead history. It's the only community-made campaign that Valve looked at and said, yeah, this is official now. A fan built it, Valve endorsed it, and it shipped as a real DLC. That almost never happens. But Coldstream wasn't just one campaign, it was a package deal. Valve bundled it with ports of 4 original Left 4 Dead campaigns: Blood Harvest, Dead Air, Crash Course, and Death Toll, all rebuilt inside the Left 4 Dead 2 engine. On Xbox 360, the whole bundle ran about $7. On PC, it was completely free. Now here's a fun one: nobody can actually agree on when this thing released. Valve's own blog lists June 29th, 2012, but the official announcement says July 24th, 2012. Both dates exist, both are from Valve. Pick your favorite, I guess. The campaign itself is an outdoor trek through creeks and forests, which already makes it feel different from most L4D2 maps. But the real gameplay shift comes from the new uncommon Infected it introduced. Mudmen that crawl through the swamps, and Riot Police zombies that force you to flank because shooting them from the front does absolutely nothing. That enemy variety alone changes how you approach every single encounter. Coldstream sits in the harder half of this ranking not because of one brutal scripted moment, but because the terrain and enemy diversity keep you constantly adjusting. And the fact that a community campaign set this precedent, that matters. Because years later, Valve would do it again with something even bigger: Dead Air. Speaking of Coldstream bringing old content into Left 4 Dead 2, Dead Air is one of the campaigns that made the jump. Originally part of the first Left 4 Dead, it got ported over in that same update, meaning anyone who only owns L4D2 can now experience it without buying the original game. And the setting, an airport, which sounds almost mundane compared to swamps and carnivals until you actually play it. Here's the thing about airports. Everyone knows what a crowded terminal feels like. The narrow corridors, the bottleneck security checkpoints, the long stretches of hallway where there's nowhere to go but forward. Now fill every inch of that with Infected. That's Dead Air. The campaign funnels you through cramped terminal corridors that give special Infected an absurd advantage. Smokers can drag you down a hallway with zero cover, hunters can pounce from around blind corners, chargers have a straight lane to bulldoze your entire team into a wall. There's literally no room to scatter when an ambush hits, and the game knows it. This is where you feel the original Left 4 Dead design philosophy. These campaigns were built before Valve had years of player feedback to balance around. The choke points feel tighter, the spacing feels more punishing. It's not unfair, but it's noticeably less forgiving than the campaigns Valve designed specifically for the sequel. Dead Air sits in that upper mid-tier for exactly this reason. Solid campaign, great atmosphere, but it carries the DNA of a game that hadn't quite figured out how generous to be with its players yet. But at least an airport full of zombies is something you can wrap your head around. The next campaign takes you somewhere far less familiar: Death Toll. Remember Crash Course? That tiny bridge DLC I mentioned earlier? This is where it was taking you the entire time. Death Toll is the destination, and honestly, it was worth the trip. This campaign starts you on a turnpike, surrounded by wrecked cars and abandoned vehicles stretching as far as you can see. Classic zombie apocalypse highway imagery. But then the road leads you into Riverside, and that's where things get interesting. Riverside is a ghost town. Not metaphorically, the entire town is empty, cleared out, with that eerie silence that makes every footstep feel too loud. It gives the whole campaign this road trip gone wrong energy that no other campaign in the lineup really captures. Here's the thing about Death Toll though. It's an original Left 4 Dead campaign, built with that older design philosophy, and you can feel it. The pacing is less forgiving than what L4D2 players are used to. Hordes hit at weird intervals, safe room placement feels tighter, it's not brutally hard, but it has this old school stubbornness to it that catches people off guard if they've only ever played the sequel. It landed in L4D2 through the Coldstream update alongside the other original campaigns, and the transition mostly works. But the ghost town of Riverside still hits different. There's something about walking through an entire town where everyone is either dead or gone that sticks with you. But if Death Toll gives you that slow creeping dread of empty streets, wait until Dead Air throws you into the claustrophobic nightmare of a completely overrun airport: Blood Harvest. Blood Harvest is the last of the 4 original Left 4 Dead campaigns brought into L4D2 through the Coldstream port, and it might be the most underestimated campaign in the entire franchise. Here's why. Every other campaign in Left 4 Dead gives you something to work with: hallways, doorways, narrow streets, choke points where you can funnel the horde and mow them down. Blood Harvest takes all of that away. You're out in open farmland, fields stretching in every direction, barns with multiple entry points, cornfields where you can't see 5 feet in front of you. And Infected can come from literally anywhere. Most players hear open terrain and think easier. Less cramped, more room to maneuver, right? Wrong. Open terrain means zero natural cover. It means a smoker tongue can reach you from a tree line you didn't even notice. It means a horde doesn't funnel toward you in a neat line, it surrounds you. The farm setting actively punishes anyone who learned to survive by backing into a corner and holding a doorway. And here's the thing that makes the Coldstream version hit different. When Blood Harvest originally launched in Left 4 Dead, you were dealing with smokers, hunters, boomers, and tanks. That's it. The L4D2 port throws spitters, jockeys, and chargers into those wide open fields. A charger in a narrow hallway is dangerous. A charger with 50 yards of open ground to build momentum, that's a death sentence. The whole campaign has this oppressive atmosphere too. Farmland at night, dead silence between attacks, barn interiors lit by nothing. It reflects the original original Left 4 Dead design philosophy perfectly. Less telegraphed, less forgiving, more relentless. But if Blood Harvest feels unforgiving, it's nothing compared to the campaign that earns the number 3 spot on this list. No Mercy. This is the one. This is where it all started. No Mercy isn't just a campaign, it's the entire identity of Left 4 Dead compressed into 5 chapters and a rooftop. When Left 4 Dead launched in 2008, No Mercy was the flagship experience, the campaign that showed up in every trailer, every demo, every preview. You start in the streets, you push through apartments, you descend into the subway, you fight through the sewers, and you climb Mercy Hospital floor by floor until you're standing on the roof, calling in a helicopter while every infected in the city rushes to stop you. That rooftop finale defined what a Left 4 Dead ending could be. Every finale that came after, every extraction, every holdout, every last stand, they're all measured against this one. The helicopter circling overhead while your team burns through ammo and medkits trying to survive long enough to board. It's the benchmark. And honestly, nothing has fully topped it because nothing else had the advantage of being first. No Mercy was later bundled with the Sacrifice DLC for Left 4 Dead 2 owners, which tells you exactly how Valve viewed this campaign. It wasn't just legacy content, it was prestige content. Something worth packaging alongside their most ambitious DLC because they knew players would want to experience it in the updated engine with the expanded infected roster. And here's the thing, we're now in the top 3. Everything up to this point has been tough, sure, but from here on out, every single campaign is a genuine test of whether your team actually knows what they're doing. No Mercy earns its spot not just on nostalgia, but because that hospital climb and rooftop holdout still punish sloppy play harder than most campaigns dare to try. But if No Mercy is the origin story, the next campaign is the community's answer to what happens when fans get to build the sequel, The Last Stand. In 2020, Valve did something nobody expected. They let the community finish what they started. The Last Stand began its life as a single survival map in Left 4 Dead 1. Just a lighthouse, endless waves of infected, and a timer counting down until you died. That was it. One map, no campaign, no story progression. Just pure survival until the horde overwhelmed you. But a dedicated group of community developers looked at that lighthouse and saw something bigger. They rebuilt it from the ground up, expanding a single survival arena into a full 2-map campaign for Left 4 Dead 2. And here's the thing, Valve didn't just approve it, they published it as an official update. September 24th, 2020, a full decade after the last major DLC, and the campaign itself wasn't even the biggest part. The Last Stand update added over 20 new survival maps, 4 scavenge maps, 30 achievements, new melee weapons, including a shovel and pitchfork, new mutations, and even reintroduced Left 4 Dead 1 zombie skins and sounds into L4D2. This wasn't a patch. This was a love letter written by the community and co-signed by Valve. But here's where it gets interesting for gameplay. The update also changed how enemies behave. The witch's kill time was reduced on normal and advanced difficulties, meaning she drops you faster than she used to. Uncommon infected appearances were adjusted across the board. Both changes pushed the difficulty upward in ways most players didn't even notice at first. Now, if you're on Xbox, you've never played this. The Last Stand is PC exclusive and will never come to Xbox 360, that's just the reality. Coldstream proved that community content could become official Valve releases. The Last Stand proved that the community could outdo Valve's own update schedule. A full campaign, reworked enemy mechanics, and enough new content to rival a paid DLC, all built by the people who refused to let this game die. But if you think a community-built campaign hits hard, wait until you see the one where Valve asks you to choose which survivor doesn't make it out alive. The Sacrifice. Let's talk about the hardest campaign in the entire franchise. And I'm not saying that for dramatic effect. The numbers are there. The Sacrifice dropped on October 5th, 2010, and it was a first for the series. This is the only campaign released simultaneously for both Left 4 Dead and Left 4 Dead 2 in the same package. Free on PC, 560 Microsoft points on Xbox 360, 3 chapters long. And every single one of them is trying to kill you. Here's what makes the Sacrifice different from everything else on this list. Scripted tanks, not random director spawns. Scripted, guaranteed, unavoidable tanks. You get 1 in a train car, 3 spawn from the generators in the port finale, and then 4 more after the bridge is raised. That's up to 8 scripted tanks in a single campaign. 8. No other campaign in either game comes close to that kind of documented enemy pressure. Valve knew this was going to be brutal, so they gave you new tools to deal with it. Explosive barrels were introduced as environmental weapons you can't pick up and carry, just use where they sit. Heavy machine gun placements were added to the port finale, specifically because you need that kind of firepower to survive what's coming. These weren't luxury additions, they were necessary. But the real gut punch is the finale mechanic. Someone has to die. The generators elevators need to be restarted to raise the bridge, and whoever goes down to do it isn't coming back, the game lets any player make that choice. You can sacrifice Coach, Rochelle, Nick, Ellis, whoever you want, but canonically, Bill is the one who stays behind. The story was already written, the game just lets you pretend otherwise, and that's what elevates the sacrifice beyond just being mechanically punishing. The new Survivor dialogue lines recorded for this DLC add genuine emotional weight to that moment. Your team isn't just losing a player, they're losing someone. The voice acting sells it. The silence after sells it more. This is the hardest campaign in Left 4 Dead history, not because of reputation, not because of community nostalgia, because of documented design. More scripted tanks than any other campaign, a cooperative mechanic with permanent consequences, and a finale that will destroy any team that isn't communicating perfectly. The research backs it up. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more, click the video on the screen now.